Biological center there, armed with researchers, professors. They've come up with incredible systems that will allow the country to better protect dengue. And we're actually going to be speaking to the scientists, the professors that are behind this right here on the show. After that, we're going to be taking a look at exactly what's going on, particularly in North India when it comes to the winter right now. Is it winters? Is it not winters? What do the experts have to say about the temperatures as they keep fluctuating? Let's take you very quickly first through all of the headlines. Then we'll get into all of this. Okay, first up, as we promised, we're going to be speaking to professors from IITM about a new science that they've come up with, essentially a system that will predict or be able to predict dengue. Whenever dengue and an outbreak of dengue is around the corner, they're going to have a grip on when it's going to come. And how are they going to be doing that? They're going to be using indicators from the climate and AI to put together a new system. And this is a system that came up in Pune, but obviously it's actually applicable across the country and even the world. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. And then, did Delhi winters just ghost us? What's happening across North India? No cold waves this Jan in Delhi. The winter peaking at 4.8 degrees centigrade. Delhi's January has seemed like it's less freeze. Is it too early to say it's over, or would we be unsafe to say so? We're going to tell you all of that with a weather analysis that goes deep today on the show. And then we take you to the roads, good styling, plenty of space and features and plenty of tech. Does the new Kia Syros have it all? Overdrive lets you know should you go for this car. First up, as we promised, you know how every monsoon we hear about rising dengue cases taking place across the country? It turns out that now students and professors in a massive study have cracked the code on predicting these outbreaks way in advance. Researchers from the Indian Institute of Tropical Meteorology in Pune, along with global experts, have developed a dengue early warning system. It gives a 2-month heads up before any outbreak takes place. How does it work? The model looks at temperatures, rainfall and humidity, because remember, dengue thrives in very, very specific weather conditions. So one of those is warmth above 27 degrees, just the right amount of rain and humidity between 60 to 78%. That's where you really see dengue exploding. But if it rains too much, so it's actually a question of too little and too much. If it rains too much, over 150 mm in a week, then you actually see that dengue is washed away. What we mean is the rain actually washes away mosquito eggs, larvae, and that actually ends up lowering cases. So the study that we're taking a look at today, it is path-breaking research, and it even brings a stern warning with it that we'll be talking about, that we're actually going to see dengue deaths jump by 13% in 2030, up to 40% by 2050 if temperatures keep rising and monsoons stay unpredictable. Now, we're going to talk a little bit more about the long-term repercussions, because this study looks at exactly that. But we want to tell you that this is such exciting news, because this AI-powered model will change the game. With better data sharing from health departments, that will hopefully take place. Cities across India could get custom dengue forecasts, so they could be prepared when this takes place. And this study isn't just relevant to dengue, it can actually be applied to other cases too, which is just what makes this so exciting. So, to get you what the science is, to speak to the experts behind this, we'll stop. We'll tell you what the experts have to say. Let's ask Professor Roxy Matthew. He's with us this morning to shed light on all of this. Professor Roxy, thank you for joining us here. I know you told us that we should call you Roxy, so we're going to do that for the next few minutes. Can you first tell us a little bit, before we get to the science behind any of this, just tell us what for you was the triggering point, why you decided that this is something worth researching, studying and developing?
Well, good morning, Toya. I am totally happy that we are here on this important discussion. It's quite important. It's a quite good news as well that we are having an early warning system. Some answers to, quite important questions on how dengue is affecting millions of people. Millions of people are affected on a yearly basis in India. India has 1/3 of the dengue burden if you look at it on a global basis. So this itself was a trigger for us to look into, what causes dengue, whether we can have answers on, predicting it much in advance, and also see if we can craft policies for the future as well. And one of the, I would say, many of my friends, relatives, and even my wife recently got admitted due to dengue case. In fact, she was in um the hospital for 5 days. And this shows that even as a climate scientist, you don't, you don't escape from the uh, impacts of these kind of climate sensitive diseases like dengue and other kind of diseases. She was in the ICU for 3 days. Yeah. So all this means that it affects. You can't escape from this kind of impacts, especially in a tropical country like India, where there are so many tropical diseases which are directly impacted by climate, the climate variability, especially the monsoon rainfall, the temperatures, ideal temperatures for mosquito breeding, and so on. Yeah, so this triggered us to study this, and we found that there aren't much studies because scientists generally work in silos. Yeah. Uh, in the narrow areas of research. So, as a climate scientist, generally I work in the climate sphere only. The medical fraternity work in their field. So, there has to be someone working transdisciplinary, looking at the impacts of climate on the health diseases and so on, so that we can work on and provide early warning systems and predictions and projections, so that we can tweak or work around our society so that for the betterment of the healthcare system.
Can we ask you just about how you set up the study in the first place? I know that a lot of data was needed just to track when dengue was breaking out over the last few years. Was that an easy process? Do institutions share data very easily? Tell us about setting up the experiment first.
It's never an easy process. It took us 3, 4 to 5 years to get to this stage. Getting the data itself was a tough task. Generally the health departments, they are shy to share the health data, probably because they are uh, a bit scared that the healthcare system will be put in the bad light, because okay, this year there were so many deaths or so many cases, and this is because of the negligence of the health departments and so on. But that is not what we are aiming to do. What we are aiming to do is to see the climate related variability of these diseases, and provide an early warning system for them, which will be beneficial actually for the health department and for the government actually. So we approach several health departments. So I work in Maharashtra. Within Maharashtra, we approach Kerala, which is a hotspot for dengue. So we saw that okay, in 2023 there were like Kerala was in the top with 153 deaths and several uh, tens of thousands of cases. Whether it's Kerala, Maharashtra, West Bengal has a lot of cases, but then for some of the years there is no data coming out of the state at all. Yeah. So at the end, uh, the health department in Pune, the Pune PMC, they were ready to cooperate, and with the help of the current chief secretary, who is Sujata Saunik, we were able to get the data and the permissions to work on that. Yeah. So once we have the health data, it was quite easy because we have the climate data. We have the rainfall, the temperature, the humidity, all those parameters which affect the dengue cycle. And we have that for, on a daily basis since 1900, on a daily basis at a high resolution for any city or any district across India,
Wow.
which means that we are just waiting for that health data from another city to fit this
Make that
data
correlation.
together. Yeah, yeah, exactly. And then once we have this, we tested different machine learning methods or artificial intelligence tools to fit this data, because the dependence between these weather parameters and the disease is not linear. It's not direct. Yeah, it's a combination or interconnected relation between rainfall, temperature, and humidity, and their patterns. Even within rainfall, different patterns affect the dengue incidences. Yeah. So all this we were able to, work out through this machine learning method, train and test this model, and then we were able to get sufficient accuracy in replicating or forecasting the dengue cycle and the mortality as well.
So, Dr. Roxy, if we could ask you, one aspect I was a little confused about was that this
Yeah.
model, as you've said, looks into the future. It can essentially predict for you. But one of the
Mhm.
tricky things with climate change that we talk about a lot is the fact that climate change means more freak incidents. So, in a sense, less predictability of the kind of weather changes, the big patterns you're going to see.
Right.
So,
Right.
then how do you make those predictions, especially over the long term?
Well, you are right that the weather is getting more and more chaotic, especially the tropical weather is fast moving, quickly developing weather systems. Yeah. But here the model and the forecast depend on the average seasonal cycle. For example, whether you will in general have moderate rainfall spread through the season or more number of extreme rainfall events, or whether the average temperature conditions or the number of days where the temperature is above this conducive conditions. Yeah. And that uh, even in the future, we see that we are able to predict that, and we will be able to predict the dengue cycle also based on that. So that's not a major issue with this. Yeah.
I thought the coolest thing here, though, was that you've said that it will potentially be applicable to other diseases too. It isn't just dengue. Can you talk a little bit about that? How this can expand, even in different countries, you've said there is a potential to expand this. What would that look
Yes,
like?
yes, 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 yes. So there are many other climate sensitive diseases like dengue, um, chikungunya, malaria, yellow fever, probably even Zika virus. So many of these are vector-borne diseases spread by mosquitoes, and changes in rainfall cycle and temperature and humidity and all affect the cycle, yeah, of these vector-borne diseases. So it's quite possible if we have the data for those diseases, we can do a similar kind of with the same framework. We can develop an early warning system and future projections for these diseases as well. And this is applicable for not just Pune, but across India, where we have monsoonal conditions, or for other countries, nearby countries in South Asia or in the Indo-Pacific, which has a tropical climate similar to India, yeah, where the rainfall variability is like this with monsoonal conditions, and temperatures are tropical temperatures above 25, 27 degrees Celsius or 30 degrees Celsius. Yeah. In fact, it was quite hot in Pune yesterday. Last night it was hot. Um, I think we had one of the warmest Januaries in Pune, yeah, ever recorded. Yeah. So this shows that the climatic conditions are changing. They are becoming more conducive for this kind of tropical diseases, and it is high time that we work on this. Yeah, we need the entire um community to work together, share the data, so that we can make more of these kind of early warning systems, which can save lives.
Right. I love, Professor, I have to say, right from the beginning of this interview, your big emphasis is we need to share data. Different departments across the country need to share data to make this possible. So can you just tell us, Professor, how exactly does the system predict? So what we mean when we say that is, if, for example, the city of Pune now adopts this system properly, what will it mean? How specific will the prediction be? Will it say between this day and this day we're going to see a dengue outbreak? Will it say which parts of Pune? Exactly what does the model tell you?
So there are multiple provisions if we adopt the model. One thing is we can predict in advance, yeah, because there is a lag between the weather conditions and how the mosquito larvae develops, and you need to have multiple cycles of mosquito population develop so that there is a enough threshold of or enough number of mosquito population, and then the virus has to develop in the mosquitoes, which is called extrinsic incubation. Then it has to bite a human, and then there is intrinsic incubation, which is inside the humans. So, which means that it gives a long period for predicting after, for example, rainfall or temperature conditions are there. So that gives us about 2 months advance period, yeah, for a city like Pune. For other regions, it might be different based on the weather, temperature conditions, and the other socioeconomic conditions over there as well. Yeah. So this gives us 2 months advance time to tell for the coming season, upcoming monsoon season. For example, maybe in April, May, we can say by June, July, with the onset of the monsoon, if the dengue cases will be high, whether it will be above a particular percentile, above the 75th percentile or not, or will it be lower, so that adequate precautions can be taken, whether it is mosquito fogging or other kind of, removing the water containers from the city and making sure that the mosquito uh, uh, populations are under control. So these kind of precautions can be taken, and also we can map the hotspots within the city as well. Yeah, where the dengue cases would be high. So all this is possible with more and more data coming in.
And that would essentially mean that if you're able to predict the hotspots, any authorities can already be proactive about the way in which they treat those hotspots, right? Carry out basic
Exactly. They can
hygiene and
divert their
sanitary
resources
practices.
to those regions. They can divert those resources to those regions instead of the regions where the dengue will be low. Yeah.
Okay. And can I just ask you, Professor, before we let you go, the next question, we're going to step away from dengue. You talked right in the beginning about the importance of all scientists, researchers, professors to approach whatever they do in an interdisciplinary manner. You said that's why this came about. Can I almost ask you, when it comes to climate science, which is what you do, what you specialize in, dengue is one way in which health and climate science can be tied together. Where are the other ways in which climate science can unlock secrets? If, for example, you were given an endless budget and you could research many, many different interlinking and connections.
Yeah. So many examples. Agriculture, for example, the crops. We saw that like in 2022 heat wave season, the entire North India was impacted by heat waves, and what we call as compound extreme events are happening. So there is dry season, and deficit in rainfall due to climate change. On top of that, we have heat waves, and then there is pollution also. So all these factors compounding together and impacting agriculture. So we saw that the grain size were 20% lower in those years, and India had even reduced the import of wheat grains from the country during that time. Yeah, that's one example. Stock market actually is impacted through agriculture. One example is impacted by because, and we see that even when during the forecast time itself. So April, May, we have the forecast from the India Meteorological Department on how the next season, monsoon season would be. And depending on that, large scale farmers ready their fields. So depending on if the forecast is good or bad, they will decide how much of area they will cultivate for that year, and based on that, they will buy the fertilizers and all. Yeah. So these kind of cascading impacts are there for climate and climate variability and climate change as well. These are just some examples. Um, there are impacts on the fisheries sector uh, because we see that the warming in the oceans, that is one part of my study, warming in the oceans reduce the phytoplankton, the microscopic plants in the ocean, yeah, which are like the base of the food chain and affect the upper part of the food chain as well. And you would ideally have reduced fish catch due to that, or impacts on coral
So it's
bleaching.
almost the ripple effects that we
Yeah,
see
ripple
starting
effect.
out at the very base, is what you're
Yeah,
saying, the phytoplankton on the very base, and then you see it sort of ripple through. Professor,
exactly.
thank you. Thank you so much for just joining us, for shedding a light on this topic, but also just taking our conversation to so many different other places. All right, we hope we've left
Thank
you.
you, Toya.
Thank you
That
so
was a
much,
wonderful
Professor.
discussion.
Thank you. Okay, we'd like to thank you, Professor. We'd also like to thank our audiences just for staying with us through that. It was a slightly meatier topic. We wanted to pull apart the new research that they've done. Now we're going to head into a quick break. On the other side, we're going to be taking a look at something different. Did Delhi winters ghost us? We're staying very much in the area of climate science here. year, climate change and what it may have done to winters. We'll take a deeper look at that, as there were no cold waves this January in Delhi. Winter peaked at 4.8. And is it enough to say North India is not going to be seeing winter at all? That's the question. We're going to answer it on the other side with our colleague Shrishti. See you in just a few minutes.
Dead bodies. I see the police at the Delhi. They getting some
यहाँ बेकार है यार, रुकना भाई यहाँ से चलने में फायदा है यार। बहुत हो गया, 7 बजे आएंगे।
playing in, because the pollution levels are also high. So all these conditions tend to really make the weather a very confusing phenomena here.
Shrishti, if we were toddlers and you had to explain it to us, would you say that it's climate change that is once again playing villain here, or can we not make that conclusion?
Definitely. We cannot rule out the impact of climate change. So scientists really do a lot of studies to attribute any event to climate change, but overall they agree that the global warming, which is the rising global temperatures, are influencing weather across the countries. So that is what the impact we are seeing on our winters also. Remember when we were kids and we would go to schools, really, so December used to be very cold.
Yeah.
This time we are seeing a lot more sunnier days, even till late December and mid-December. So now even over the last 2 weeks, if you see in Delhi, I think after January 18th, the temperatures started rising. They were about like 3.5 to 4.5 degrees Celsius above normal, which is a really bit too high for the national capital. So the winters are definitely getting short. We are seeing very few winter days. So we are living in a post-warming world. In 2024, just to add, the global temperatures were 1.55 degrees Celsius above normal, the annual warming, which is almost hitting the mark that 2015 Paris Agreement was set up. But that is, overall. But yes, the climate change or the global warming is definitely influencing how we perceive weather, how we forecast the weather. And it's definitely making our winters short, and this is somewhat disappointing, because it doesn't influence just how we live, but it also influences various other factors in the northern states and especially the mountainous regions.
Crop patterns, for example, we were talking about that earlier on the show. Perhaps, Shrishti, the next time you and I meet on air on TBC, we're both going to be in half sleeves, and you're right, it is largely worrying if you take a larger look at the patterns. Okay, thank you for joining us. We're going to head into a short break. On the other side of the break, we are switching tracks altogether, and we're going to be taking you to the roads. What are we talking about? We're talking about a new release that's going to be hitting the roads. Take a look at it over there. It is the Kia Syros. Is it worth the buy? Look at its look, the boxy body. It's very different from what you're used to seeing on the road. And is it worth going for? The Korean car of your dreams? We'll tell you on the other side. Do stay with us.
bottoms. I see with release of the Dengue already some of
यहाँ बेकार है यार, रुकना भाई। भाई यहाँ से चलने में फायदा है यार। बहुत हो गया, 7 बजे आएंगे।
All right, next, let's take you to the streets. If you're an Indian in the car market, you already know that the market has become an ocean of SUVs and crossovers in the last decade. The Korean car maker Kia's latest offering is the Syros, and whether it can shake up this tricky demographic or not remains obviously to be seen. But on first glimpse, this car's tall, boxy, boyish, modern design definitely makes it stand out. Is that enough? Or should you go for it? And should you go for it? As usual, Overdrive is going to be telling you exactly what they think. This is the verdict. Take a look.
Sub-4-meter SUVs are often seen as a game of compromise. You either lose out on the space, or settle for an average design, or sacrifice on some new age tech to meet that price point. Now, Kia aims to change that narrative with this, the Syros. It's a car that has some tall promises to make. Good styling, plenty of space, and features and cutting-edge tech without cutting corners. But the key question is, can it live up to all those lofty claims? Let's find out. The Kia Syros is a bold departure from the mundane. Its angular styling and boxy silhouette exude confidence, while the geometric theme seen all throughout the car, even on the alloy wheels, adds a sophisticated touch. The big cladding over the squared wheel arches may look a bit much in the photos and videos, but impart the Syros a rugged stance. The car looks premium from all quarters, and that gives it an aspirational appeal. If I had to go nitpicking about the design, well, it's a bit too busy. Curved lines here, horizontal lines here, a vertical crease here. all of this creates a very unique interplay of light and shadow surfaces, not like a conventional car, and that may not be appealing to everyone. It could polarize opinions. It may not be a universally appealing design to a lot of people out there. But it's undeniably modern, and that is what I like about it. Compared to the rivals like Tata Nexon, Maruti Suzuki Brezza, Hyundai Venue, and even the Kia Sonet, the Syros carves its niche with several unique design elements. The floating roof effect adds to that sporty stance, makes it look quite sophisticated as well. And then when you move over to the lighting elements, all these vertical bits, they add a sense of height. And then you have the digital tiger nose, another Kia signature, which again aims at making the car look wide. So whether you look at the car from the side, the front, or the front three-quarter, you know that it is a spacious car, and that definitely works in its favor. No matter what angle you look at the car from, it has a modern, high-tech vibe. Key question: will it redefine the segment expectations? Well, only time will tell. But speaking of time, radical designs like these don't usually withstand the test of time. They start looking outdated very quickly. However, I think with the Syros, that's not going to happen. Step inside and the cabin immediately impresses. At the center of it all is the 30-inch Trinity display, a combination of a 12.3-inch infotainment screen, a 12.3-inch digital instrument cluster, and a 5-inch touch panel for the climate control, which is only available, however, on the top trim. There is wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and the interface is youthful and slick. The screens are placed quite thoughtfully high up on the dashboard so that you don't have to take your eyes too far off the road to glance at information or to make quick selections. At the same time, they don't intrude in your field of vision. They aren't distracting when you're on the move. So I think the design, the placement, the layout, everything is quite thoughtfully done. Another thoughtful touch: the drive mode and traction mode switches are on the steering wheel itself, not on the tunnel console. So again, if you want to make any changes, that is seamless, reduces effort, and you don't have to take your eyes off the road. So I think it's a very nice balance of form and function. The steering wheel itself looks quite nice. The only thing that is missing, and I'm nitpicking again, is there is no reach adjustment for the steering. That would have been perfect. So, key question: does the interior of the Syros feel premium? Absolutely. Contributing further to the premium appeal are the myriad of cabin color options depending on the variant you choose. There is a beautiful interplay of textures that feel rich for the segment. And the high-tech vibe continues in here with switches and panels thoughtfully laid out. Other standout features include rear ventilated seats. Yep, you heard that right. A segment first. And even adjustable rear seats, both for reach and recline. The doors of the Syros almost open 90 degrees, and you also have a high hip point, which means that families that have elderly parents, elderly passengers, they are going to find the Syros to be a really comfortable car. I quite like it. Getting in and out of the car is quite nice. Now, the driver's seat is set to my driving preference. Knee room is pretty decent. Foot space is really good. Under thigh support is also quite nice. And then you have this airy feel coming from the panoramic sunroof. Now, even the lower trims are going to get a sunroof, though not panoramic. Even the windows, again, nice and big. So the boxy silhouette that we saw on the outside, that definitely translates to a lot of space. You also get these window blinds, which is another thoughtful addition. But what I really like for the rear seat is that you can adjust the reach to improve knee room even further. And you can also recline the seat in case you want to get a nice comfortable snooze in here. So the rear seat comfort is really, really good. Key question: can the sub 4 meter space give you an option of a chauffeur driven car? Well, you do have it now with the Syros.
A All right, next we bring you a special section on financial markets powered by Money Control Pro, Money Control's premium destination for investing and business insights. Let's take a look first at markets. GIFT Nifty signals a subdued opening for Indian equities. Asian equities opened weak on Thursday after US Federal Reserve held interest rates steady. Now, US indices ended weak after volatile session continued as uncertainty on policy stances in the near term have continued to weigh on people's minds. Crude oil, gold prices, they eased, showing easing signs in international markets. All of this post the Fed decision. Okay, now we're going to take a look at a sector in particular. The demand outlook for passenger vehicles remains positive right now. There's rural demand and it's actually very interestingly outpacing urban demand, and this trend is expected to continue. Demand is relatively soft in the entry-level segments. Demand for premium vehicles, particularly those classified as utility vehicles and for mid-sized vehicles, remains strong. Now, the export market is seeing a very, very steady revival. So there is that to look forward to. And you can log into Money Control Pro to find out more about India's automobile sector and various other actionable insights on the markets. It's the premier destination for all the investing views and financial insights that you're ever going to need, brought to you by Money Control. All right, and what we are taking you to next, visuals we're leaving you with: military bands, pipes, drum bands, buglers, trumpeters, coming together to mark the beating retreat yesterday evening, bringing the 4-day-long Republic Day celebrations in India to an end. Have you ever watched the beating retreat? How has it made you feel? It's a very, very special ceremony, and it marks a centuries-old military tradition where the troops actually ceased fighting, they sheathed their arms and withdrew from the battlefield to return to their camps at sunset at the sound of the retreat. So that is why we celebrate it. Take a look at these visuals right now as they come in. This is obviously from everything that took place yesterday. Beating Retreat 2025, and we're actually going to leave you with these visuals. Take a look and do join us tomorrow. Sare jahan se acha, as you can see, going out there into the evening air yesterday. That was the beating retreat. Now, we're excited to tell you tomorrow's obviously Friday, which means that tomorrow's show is going to be packed with everything you can do in the weekend. So we're going to be bringing you updates right from what to watch to what you can do, no matter where you are in the country, the art events that are taking place, the historical events that are taking place. We're going to bring you that lowdown. We're also going to be bringing you a roundup of everything in the entertainment world. It's Friday or Friday, as we like to say, right here on The Breakfast Club. We'll see you tomorrow.
gardens. I see the release of the dengue. Already some have
यहाँ बेकार है यार, रुकना भाई। भाई यहाँ से चलने में फायदा है यार। बहुत हो गया, 7 बजे आएंगे।